Yeah, so what programming language do you use?
So previous internship I've done Python, but I'd say like the most I'm like most well versed in C++ at this point.
What C++? I
Still
missed that. You said Python and then what?
C++ is what I've been using most recently or trying to prep for.
Okay. And what would you say your degree of like professional C++ experience is? Is there?
Um, and let me in comparison to my peers, I mean maybe like an 8 in comparison to like an actual like quant dev, maybe like much lower, maybe like a 4.
Well, I'm going to
But I
judge you
guess
against your peers because
okay,
that's what the firm that you applied for judged you against.
fair enough.
So
Yeah.
if 5 is average, 1 is trash, 10 is really good. And yeah, 5 is like I'm like my peers, 10 is I'm a god. You're saying you're 8.
Yeah, maybe 7 or 8, somewhere around there. I'd hope.
Okay, so you're close to god status.
Maybe if a few more months, I'd be god status.
Okay. And this is your first internship out of bachelor's?
It's my third internship. It's my first one in the quant industry.
Okay. But it's your first gig outside of school.
Yeah, it's like a normal summer internship because I'm going to do a master's afterwards. But yeah,
Got it.
effectively.
And what's your master's going to be in?
Also computer science, just different specialization.
Okay. Okay. I guess we can start simple. Like, what version of C++ do you use so I know what sort of questions to ask? And do you want this to be a C++ interview?
Yeah, I mean, I'm cool going anywhere with it, honestly.
Okay.
Maybe like OS or C++ is probably like where I'd want to take it.
Okay.
I've been mostly focusing on 17 and 20. Not that I know all the features within those versions, but I've been trying to, I guess, learn the nuances of them.
Okay. And so if I wanted to, what compiler do you use?
I use GCC or G++.
Okay. Um, what can you name me one or two other compilers that exist out there?
Yeah, like CLang or LLVM.
Okay. Um, my next question for you, I'm gonna start kind of simple and I guess work my way up. So, um, let's start with auto. Do you know what auto is?
Yeah, it's type deduction.
Okay. Now, what's one benefit of using auto over using something else?
Yeah, so potentially if we have like a complicated return type, auto can make it a little bit simpler to read.
Okay.
I know also potentially like if we're using template programming,
Yeah.
if we don't know right away, because we don't know the parameters, we don't know what's going to be returned,
Yeah.
we could use auto and then have a trailing return type that's based on the parameters.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You can like infer the return type based off the parameters.
Mhm.
Now, is there any point in time where auto can deduce undesired types?
Yeah, I believe it can. I was actually doing a question on your website about this earlier.
Okay.
Uh, Trying to see if I can recall it here. I know which answer choice I put. I think it was the wrong one. I think, yeah, I think I put like the null pointer value, and I said that would deduce incorrectly. Um, when was it? I don't recall exactly like the case um, when it would deduce incorrectly, but I know there are cases where it can happen.
Yeah, one of the one in the getcrack.io was vector bool. That's like the classic example.
Oh, yeah, I do remember
Since
that.
it's a
Okay,
specialization that stores booleans in like a bit set instead of an actual bool
right. Yeah, I
to
remember
save
that.
space. Okay, let's talk about like let's talk about I would say like simple character types. So how big is a char in C++?
It's just one byte.
And is it signed or unsigned?
Believe that's implementation defined.
Right. And so if I was to check if a char is a unsigned type, what library or signed type, what library might I use to do that check?
I believe there's something within the standard library. There's like is I know there's like the is same type v, but I
Right.
know it's not the same as there's probably a I don't know the exact function name, but I assume there's something within the standard library to check.
Yeah, that's the right. That's one of the methods that I'd look at. Do you know what library it's contained in?
Oh, like the namespace? Not exactly. No,
Okay,
I
it's
don't.
in type traits. That's not as important. Um, nobody's gonna deduct points in an actual interview based off something like that, whether you know the exact name of the library.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, I want to talk a little bit about containers because that's something that usually comes up a lot in interviews.
Sure.
So my first question for you is, what's the difference between a vector and an array? This is probably one of the most basic questions.
Yeah. So I mean, in C++, like, and all languages, is mainly the fact that vector is dynamically resizable,
Yeah.
whereas an array we would need to know the size at compile time.
Okay. And do I need to specify the size, or can the compiler, you know, deduce that for me?
We're talking about a vector array.
An array.
When you say deduce, what do you mean?
So can I write std array and then just give it like curly brace 1, 2, 3 end curly brace?
I'd want to say there's a constructor for that. Um, yeah, I guess I would say yes. I don't know if the list initializer is deleted for like std array.
No, it's not deleted. This has not. It's not to do with constructors. It's more to do with uh, in C++17, you can actually emit a lot of these types and the sizes for these sorts of arrays because there's template argument deduction.
Mhm.
So you can just write std array, pass it, 1, 2, 3 in an initializer list, and the compiler will deduce the type and size for you. So you don't actually have to specify the exact, int and then 3, for example.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's a trailing return type, and when might it be useful? Since we're talking about types a lot.
Yeah. So it's like the what dash and then greater than sign.
Yeah.
But essentially, as we mentioned earlier, you typically want to use that when you have when you're using like auto keyword,
Mm-hmm.
and you can use it to specify. I've mainly seen it used in template programming. For example, like we have like auto max, TA, TB, or I guess they could be different types. But essentially, like we don't know the type of max, but we want to be like explicit about it, or want to use it in a forward declaration. We can
Okay.
use a trailing return type to be like explicit about that, or like I said, if we wanted to have that in a forward declaration.
Okay. You mentioned max.
Mhm.
Um, if you have max of A and B, okay. Let's say I have this program. Int x equals 5, int y equals 5. Then I find the maximum between the two. What is returned, x or y?
Um, I guess that would depend exactly on how you implement it. Am I assuming here that like max is
This is
implemented like with the
stud max.
ternary?
Stud max.
Oh, std max. Okay. I guess I don't know. I would imagine, like, of course, it would return if they're equivalent. It would return. I would guess maybe the first one. I don't know the exact implementation of std max, but my thought is here. Typically, it wouldn't matter if they're considered equivalent.
Yeah. So it in theory it wouldn't matter, but I think it will return the first one always. I might be wrong and would return the second one, but it would return one of them, and that's what I was looking for you to answer.
Mhm.
I was looking for the thought process there as opposed to whether or not it would be the first or would be the second. So now that we're speaking about kind of like functions and arguments and what's going to be returned where by who, um, if I was to write, foo, and I want to pass in the result of the call to the method A, and then the second parameter is the result of the call to method B, what order are these parameters evaluated in?
Yeah, I believe that's unspecified behavior because the evaluation of arguments or the order of evaluation for arguments isn't defined
Okay.
or isn't specified rather.
Yeah, that's right. Now, what if I had A and B like before, but for A, I had C and that was called inside of A. So A needed to be seeded with the result of function C.
Mm-hmm.
Would that make a difference?
So just to clarify, this is so we have parameters are function A and function B, and function A takes another parameter of C.
Yes.
So I believe the only guarantees there is that function, so A would not be evaluated before C because C would be fully evaluated before we start evaluating A, I
Yeah.
believe.
But does the fact that C is now called in A mean that A needs to be called first?
Ooh, I don't think so.
Yeah, you're right. Doesn't need to. Um, okay. I want to talk about a little bit about the virtual keyword.
Sure.
So, what does it do, and what is the implication on a class that has at least one virtual method?
Yeah, so I believe virtual keyword is like C++'s main mechanism for dynamic dispatch. So effectively we have like class shape, right? I don't know, let's say we want to have some size method. We want like some square class to be able to inherit that. Uh, Essentially we'd have this virtual method of size, which can be overridden by square, and that can be implemented to keep the area of a square. And you mentioned like the implication of that is because, say, for example, if we had like some pointer to shape like during our program and we didn't know when that was called, whether that would be, a square or a circle or some other shape,
Yeah.
we would do dynamic dispatch and we'd have to follow a v pointer to access the v table and get the correct function lookup.
Okay. And so, what implication does that have on the class? So I understand that it's used for dynamic dispatch,
Mhm.
and at runtime it allows you to change the implementation of the method that's being called. Did you mention what implication it has? Sorry, I was messaging chat.
Implication, well, I guess the fact that you have to follow the v pointer and it can't be determined at compile time. If
Beyond
you
that, so you mentioned there's a v table, right?
yes.
So
Mhm.
what does that table do to the class that it's added to?
So I believe it'll store like a hidden pointer, the v pointer, in the beginning of the class. So essentially, all their parameters in the class will be offset by like 8 bytes in the 64-bit architecture.
So you're saying it'll add 8 bytes to the class,
Yes.
the size? Yeah. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Now, while we're talking about the size of classes, um, if I have a class that has a single static variable x, that's an integer,
Mhm.
how much space, how big is that class?
I believe, yeah. So I believe that should be 1 byte, just because it needs a distinct address. I guess there's like complexities in that. For example, like if you were to inherit that class, so I know something, for example, like std vector will inherit like an allocator class, but because of like empty base optimization, it doesn't actually need to like store any size for that.
Okay. Um, so yeah, the static data member is stored not it's not part of that class, it's stored out of it, outside of it.
Was that correct? That it still takes one, like it's
Yeah, it
still
would still take 1 byte
one
because it
byte.
has no other data.
Okay, yeah, good.
Yeah. Um, okay. Is it a good idea to have const members in a class?
Is it a good idea to have const members in a class?
Yeah. I'm getting into something like more practical C++ that's a little more
Sure.
open-ended because like a lot of the other stuff.
Uh, Second thing, let me just think about this for a second. I'm trying to think of a case where like it would be bad to have a const member.
Sure.
I, I'm thinking like potentially like why we'd have a const member. I think it could make sense. Like you said, like it's members. This is not like a global um like const variable. My thought is there could be things that we know wouldn't change, and like they would only be initialized once. We wouldn't want them to change afterwards. Um, so I could see like a use case where it would be useful. Maybe if like there's something you had in mind of like where it would be problematic, we could look at that.
Okay. That was not much of an answer. You said it can be useful sometimes and not useful in other times. So
Right.
when
I guess I mean like I don't see a problem initially with it.
okay. What implications might it have on moving the object?
Yeah. So like moving the object would mean that we'd essentially like transfer control of the const variable to another like instance of the class. Um,
But can you do that if it's const? You know what I mean?
right. It can't be moved as const. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, from the way you're phrasing the question, I'm gonna say no. I otherwise didn't initially know there's a problem with that though. I'd imagine maybe we could, if we're moving it, it could still like retain its constness in the new instance.
No, it would need to occupy another location in memory, as part of the creation of the new object.
Mhm.
So it can't be moved, but it can be copied. But it does have the implication that now you need to have a more specific. You need to pay more specific attention to that move operation and those details.
I see. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Um, okay. Let me ask you about strings a little. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I'm just trying to test the breadth of your knowledge, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I'm good with whatever.
Let's say I have a number zero, and I have two methods. One that takes in a const char star, and one that takes in a short. And I pass the number zero to both methods. Or sorry. I don't pass it to both. There's two methods. One takes in a const char star, and one takes in a short. And they're both named print. So they're overloads of each other,
Hmm.
the method print. And all they do is they just print out whether it's a const char star or a number, and they just print it. And then I call print with the number zero. Which one gets called? The const char star one or the short one?
Sure. When you say number zero, you mean 32-bit integer zero?
Yeah.
So
I'm
I
not
know like
defining 32-bit integer zero first. I'm just typing the number zero on my keyboard.
right. Okay.
Print
Yeah.
bracket zero bracket.
My thought here is I know like overload resolution will first try like a numeric promotion, which I don't think applies here because that would be like a narrowing conversion to short. My thought is there maybe be I believe like an ambiguous conversion when trying to convert to either a car pointer or too short. Although I mean, like intuitively, like my thought would be like it would go to like the short. But yeah, I guess I'm gonna say this is probably ambiguous.
It is ambiguous. That's right. Yeah, that's a good thought process there. It's ambiguous between the two, so the compiler actually errors
Gotcha.
because
Okay,
it's not
that's
sure which one is a better or more suitable conversion. What about
figured.
this? Let's say I have a const char star, and I have two methods. One that takes in a void pointer, const void pointer, and one that takes in a string.
Is that the question essentially? Which would overload resolve
Yeah,
to?
yeah,
Yeah, I believe. So I mentioned like the order of like overload resolution.
yeah.
I believe here because car pointer is like able to convert to void pointer, it would choose that one over the conversion to standard string because that's a user defined conversion, which takes place after like numeric conversions.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. I think I'm going to end it there. I mean, you said you're 8 out of 10 relative to your peers. Yeah, I would put you there.
No, I appreciate
So
that.
yeah, good job there. Are you in the U.S. or are you abroad?
I am in the US, yes.
Okay. I would say good luck on your internship. Do you have any questions for me now that I've asked you a bunch?
Yeah, there was I guess there was one question. I was like scrolling through your Discord a while ago and I saw
Oh,
you
you're in the
mentioned
Discord.
I am in the Discord.
Oh, okay, cool.
Also, yeah. Um I saw there was some question essentially was like to what depth should you really like learn a lot of these things because so I've been most recently focusing on C++ and kind of like revisiting some of my OS knowledge. But obviously, like there's a lot of other things that I know are tested and and for quant dev roles, such as like networking, so like Linux, um, just general like I guess he's also talk about like design patterns and whatnot. And what I'm going through now is I'm very like going pretty in depth on I think C++ and OS or trying to at least. But I know there's like areas I need to touch on as well before I get into interview processes. And I guess like because you can really just go forever into C++ or OS, right, and like, keep learning
Yeah.
more like minute information. Like, what do you think is like a good heuristic for when enough is enough, and you should like start touching on more of like a breadth of topics as opposed to going more in depth into like super weird C++ behavior.
I would say that the approach should be before you start, especially when you're young, to go for breadth. And
Mhm.
then based off the team you're put on, go for depth from there. Some teams use like a crazy template meta program that I look at and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Right. So
Gotcha.
then I might pick up a book on templates. I picked up a 700-page book on templates. I'm only 100 pages in, but still like some of this stuff still I'm learning new things every day. Right. I'm learning new things about how templates work in C++ every day. And those inspire a lot of the questions on Get Cracked. So what I would do is I would focus on a breadth of knowledge before you start. And then once you start, you can start honing in your skill set and figuring out, okay, I'm going to need to know a bit more about this part of C++ or that part of C++. Because you're right. It's like it's massive. You'll never in your lifetime understand all of it.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, I think that makes sense. I guess it's kind of like somewhere along those lines. Because I haven't actually like worked in the industry yet. I'm curious, like, would you say from your own experience, like the average coworker, say where you work, like could come on like one of your calls and like answer everything perfectly, or do you think they'd like trip up
No,
on questions or?
no, it depends on how much they want to invest in their own personal learning. Um, I would say you're more cracked at C++ than a lot of people that I've met um, in the industry as well. But that also is highly biased as to like who you know and who you speak to and what your circle of friends and network is. Um, yeah, I would say not don't. There's definitely a lot of C++ gods in the industry, but a lot of people just want to get their job done and go home, and they have family and kids to do, or they have other hobbies they want to focus on. So there is a like a variation within quant too.
Okay, yeah, I think it makes sense. I appreciate your time and
Yeah.
I have fun with it. So thank you.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. Have a good one.
See ya.